we have a water situation here in California that anyone in the water business knows that's the case. I think we have some of our largest reservoirs are very, very low. I think 39% capacity, is it for Oroville? Something astonishingly low. Water conservation has to be what all of us are doing, residents, businesses, anyone who lives in California. And so with that in mind, we're gonna start with John. Why don't you get us started to tell us what it is we need to know about water rates and regulation and how that will impact the drought.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. I hope you guys can see my screen now that I'm sharing. Good, thumbs up. Okay, great. I think everybody know, California is in a historic drought. I won't belabor the point here and talk to you about all the things that are going on. What I will say is that we've had three.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Sorry. I think
okay.
That's
We've had three significant droughts in the last 30 years, and all of them were called historic or described as historic. So when you use that word historic too many times, it maybe historic is not the right word for you to use anymore. Maybe this is kind of part of the new normal that we're all facing. And so as you can see here, it's going to get hotter. It's going to be a thirstier West. So we definitely need not only more supply, but more conservation as well. So California, if you don't know, has already made conservation a way of life. There are already rules and regulations in the books that will be enforced starting in 2025. Everybody will be put on a water budget. There will be indoor use numbers for each one of us for what we can use indoor every day. And if you go over that amount, there may be some kind of penalty associated with it. Water conservation is our cheapest source of supply, of new water supply, I'll say. And when I talk about supply, if you think of supply as like recycled water, if you think of supply as like desalination, right? Those are big bucket volumes of supply. Conservation can fit into that too. And what we know is that conservation is only one tool in the toolkit. We are not going to be able to conserve our way out of this. We're going to have to look at all the options that are available to us, but the cheapest and most readily responsive, most readily available source of supply to us is really conservation. And that's why the state is so focused on that. One recent study, and I know my colleague Justin is going to talk a little bit more about this, showed that water bills are 27% lower in one community than they would have without water conservation efforts. In short, when you conserve, when you use less water, your bill will be less. I mean, all else being equal, your bill will be less. And so, there's definitely a focus on not only driving down water use, but also managing customers' bills as well. So I'm going to take you through a very simple rate making slide here, and this is how water utilities set rates. Okay, this is a very simple example. Both public and private water utilities set rates in pretty much the same manner. So let's say you run a water utility and you're going to sell 100 units of water in the coming year. So you have to figure out how much this 100 units of water is going to cost you to deliver. And so let's say that it costs you $100 just for a simple math to deliver this water. What's key about this is that 80% of your costs are fixed. So before you deliver 1 unit of water, you have to put pipes in the ground, you have to drill wells, you have to, have an office, you have to have personnel running tests, all of that stuff. 80% of that is fixed. So $80 is fixed. Only 20% of that is actually the water charge, the water that you buy and then you retail to customers. So when you take a simple calculation like 100 units costing $100, you get $1 per unit of water. So this is a very, very simple example. All right. So again, here, this is a bar chart showing, you can see the red line there showing, all the way up to $80 is what your fixed costs are. And then anything above that is your variable cost, which is the cost of the water. All right. So what happens when you conserve 20%? What happens when you ask customers to conserve 20% like we did in the last round? We actually asked customers to conserve much more than that. When you think about 100 units of water and it costs $20, it's 20 cents per unit of water. That's how much we actually save, both customers and the water company, the water utility, by not having to produce that water or deliver that water. So when you save 20%, what you're really saving is you're really saving $4. Okay. But when you charge $1 a unit, you are actually only recovering $80. And so there's a difference there of $16. This is your fixed cost that you are now trying to recover. All right. So hopefully everybody can kind of understand that simple math. The underscore to this is that, and this is for every utility, every water utility that runs into conservation. When you conserve, water rates go up, okay? Because now you have $96 that you need to recover, and you're only dividing that by 80 units. Remember, recall before we had $100 and we were dividing that by 100 units to get $1 a unit. Now you have $96 and divided by 80 units. That's why rates go up when conservation happens. It is a phenomenon that is hard to explain, hard for people to accept, but it is fact. And it happens to every single water utility that has this problem in California. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to my peer, Justin Scarb, who's with Cal Water, and he's going to talk to you about what we are trying to do as an industry to make sure that we can continue to promote and encourage our customers to conserve.
Thanks for that, John. I appreciate it. As you can kind of tell from the previous slides that John went through, in a traditional rate-making environment or a traditional regulatory environment, utilities have a perverse incentive to sell as much product as they can. Electric utilities to sell as much electricity, gas utilities to sell as much gas as they can, water utilities to sell as much water as they can. Which is fine and dandy when you have an infinite supply of water, or you have an infinite supply of energy. You don't have to worry about climate change, etc. But the game changes once you say we need to start conserving those resources. We don't want people using as much water. We don't want people using as much electricity. We want to conserve those resources to benefit the environment and benefit future generations. Well, then that comes directly at odds with the viability of the utilities themselves, because their business model, and this is true, municipal, private, doesn't matter. Their model has always been, well, the way we generate revenue is by selling more of our product. So you've got a perverse incentive there that's at odds with the environmental goals that especially we have in California. So the question becomes, how do you break that? How do you resolve that inherent tension between these two different visions of how you should operate a utility? John, if you could move on to the next slide. Thanks, I appreciate it. So one of the ways that the state has dealt with this, starting in 2008, on the water side, they modeled a program that had been implemented since the 1980s for the energy utilities, and it's broadly referred to as decoupling. And what decoupling essentially does is utility revenue and profit are separated from the amount of water that a customer uses. So you no longer are incentivizing a utility to sell more water or sell more energy. You essentially go to the utility and say, you're going to be able to recover your fixed costs, the costs that John mentioned of having to drill the wells and put the pipe in the ground and do the water quality tests and to do all those things that the utility has to do before they sell a drop of water. You're going to be able to cover your fixed costs because we want you to focus on conserving water and helping your customers to use less water. So it eliminates that perverse incentive that I was talking about. So instead, the utilities focus their efforts on conservation, knowing they're going to be able to cover all the rest of their costs. The pilot program here, John, go ahead to the next slide. Your timing was perfect. The benefit of this pilot program that was implemented by the Public Utilities Commission in 2008 are very obvious. The suppliers that were in this program were able to adopt what I refer to as progressive water rates. And what I mean by that is that they were able to ensure that the customers who used the most paid the most. Most water utilities have two components of their water bill. You have the fixed monthly service charge that you pay before you use a unit of water. And then you also have the monthly service charge, the monthly quantity charges, which are based on the amount of water that you use in a given month. The utilities that were in this pilot program, what they were able to do is they were able to shift more of their revenue recovery into those quantity charges and reduce the amount that they were charging customers before they used any water. This is beneficial from a number of aspects. One is from an equity standpoint or from an affordability standpoint, you're really helping those customers who don't use a lot of water, have made conscious decisions to reduce the amount of water they use. They're not being punished or hammered with a high water bill, despite the fact that they've taken great steps to reduce their water use. Especially true of lower income families, people that live in small houses without a big yard or no yard at all. You're especially benefiting those folks. It also provides a signal to those customers who are using a lot of water that they should use less because their bills are going up as they use more water. During this time, the suppliers that were in the pilot program by the commission substantially expanded their conservation programs and really moved into these progressive water rate designs that I was just talking about. Go ahead, John. The pilot program worked. Prior to the last drought, the suppliers that were in that program, we achieved about 29% more water conservation than those that weren't. They saved what amounts to 7.9 billion gallons of more water than they would have without this pilot program. And as you can see there, it's about 90,000 households in California that were benefited by the pilot program or would have been benefited by the pilot program. What's more than this, though, is that pilot program was expanded during the last drought. In the initial pilot, there was only 4 utilities that were included. And then in the last drought between 2015 and 2019, my dates are going to be a little off there, but roughly that time period, the commission said, this is a really good program. It's working very well to help us promote water conservation. We need to make these same principles applicable to all of the utilities or available to all the utilities that they regulate, which they did. And then that allowed for a great point of comparison between the utilities that had decoupling regulated by the commission and the utilities that didn't have it, the municipal utilities. And a third-party researcher, Professor Manny Teodoro from the University of Wisconsin at Madison, did a very detailed quantitative analysis of the conservation efforts that were implemented in the last drought. Came to 2 overarching conclusions. One, the utilities regulated by the commission with decoupling were twice as likely to comply with the water conservation mandates that have been implemented, that have been called for by the state than the utilities without decoupling. And those utilities with decoupling save substantially more water than their counterparts without decoupling in place. And this makes sense. Those utilities were able to ratchet up their focus on conservation without having to be concerned whether or not they were going to be able to cover their fixed costs that they can't do anything about, regardless of the amount of water that customers use. John, go ahead to the next slide. So unfortunately, that pilot program that the commission had in place and that was very successful came to an end in 2020. It was a pilot program. The commission said, we're going to terminate this pilot program and we're just going to let it peter out. And we can talk about what happened in that decision. It was really something that came about in the part of a much larger decision. There wasn't much discussion or debate at the commission about this, but suffice it to say, it came to an end. We did some studies to look at how this would affect customers and what would happen to customer bills, et cetera. Because of the way that you would have to restructure your rates without this pilot program in effect, the majority, upwards of 75% or 3/4 of our customers, would see their monthly bills increase by about 7.7%. Likewise, the customers who are using the most water would see their water bills decrease. And this goes back to what I was saying about the progressive rate design. With decoupling in place, we can charge customers who use less water less than the customers who use more water. And they're paying less out of pocket before they use a drop of water. This gets flipped on its side when you get rid of decoupling. Go ahead to the next slide, John. So this all then relates back to a piece of legislation that the Cal Water, San Jose Water, and a group of other utilities are sponsoring this year with the California legislature. Valley Water is actually supporting this legislation as well. And what this bill would do would reinstate the option for water utilities to pursue decoupling before the commission. And this, as I said, this already has to do with water conservation efforts, but it also has to do with affordability of water service. And the studies that we did after this pilot program came to an end last year showed that the customers who are going to be hurt the most are those customers they're going to face the most significant rate increases because of the change that would have to happen to rates, are those customers who use the least amount of water and are enrolled in our low-income ratepayer assistance program. Those customers could see their bills increase by 10 to 20%, again, because we would have to get rid of that progressive rate design that charges customers who use less water less than customers who use more water. Go ahead, John. The idea of decoupling, as I said, is it's a regulatory concept that originated with the energy utilities in the 1980s and really has been implemented as a best practice across the country, both on the energy side and on the water side. So much so that in the 2015 energy plan that was put together by President Obama's Department of Energy, they identified decoupling as a best practice to not only ensure water conservation was occurring, but also to help ensure that further energy conservation was occurring. And the connection there is that it takes a lot of energy to run a water utility. We have to treat our water, we have to pump our water, we have to move our water from point A to point B. All that takes incredible amounts of electricity to do all that with water and to make sure that it gets to the tap on time when customers need it. So every drop of water that we can save is electricity that we're not using for moving water from point A to point B and treating the water, which helps the state meet its overall climate objectives and greenhouse gas emission objectives, which is the reason why some other entities, including the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy and the Alliance to Save Energy, have also signed on to this legislation that we're pursuing in the legislature, Senate Bill 1469, which is authored by Senator Becker from the Bay Area and then Senator Bradford from Southern California. Go ahead, John. That's the end of the slide. So that was kind of our pitch for that legislation that we're talking about and the interplay between water rates and water conservation. It's a complicated topic. It really gets into the sausage making of how we come up with rates or how the Public Utilities Commission sets our rates. The bottom line really is that water utilities have very high fixed costs. And the best way to encourage water conservation and benefit and reward people for conserving is to have progressive rate designs. The only way you can square those circles is making sure that the utilities don't have to worry about getting their fixed costs covered. And Senate Bill 1469 helps achieve that end, and in turn helps ensure that we can keep water affordable in California, and more importantly, that we can achieve significant levels of water conservation, which, as Jen said at the outset, couldn't be more important now. So with that, I'm sure we'd be happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Yeah, let's, while we're talking about rates and water companies, if there's any questions for Justin or John, please. I see one question. Is there opposition to SB 1469?
Well, before answering the question about the opposition, let me start with the organizations that are supporting Senate Bill 1469. I think that we're up to about 60 organizations that are in support, and it's a wide array or a very eclectic group of organizations, from business organizations, chambers of commerce have signed on to the bill. Obviously, we've got the 5 sponsors of the utility. We've got labor on board, unions across the state that have signed on in support to the legislation because they understand its importance not only for conservation, but also keeping water affordable for their members. We have a large group of environmental organizations and that have signed on in support, including the Alliance for Water Efficiency. As I mentioned, the Alliance to Save Energy, the California Water Efficiency Partnership, and the Natural Resources Defense Council have all, and Sustainable Silicon Valley have all signed on in support. There's three organizations that are right now opposed to the legislation. The first is the California Public Advocates Office, which is a branch of the California Public Utilities Commission. They're opposed to the legislation largely because it's their job to oppose anything that the utilities want to do. And by that same token, there's a community interest group out of Monterey, Public Water Now, that is also opposed to the legislation, and they are a very anti-growth, anti-private anything, anti-private utility organization that takes umbrage with their local water supplier, California American Water. And really those two groups, if the utility comes out and says that the sky is blue, these two groups are going to take umbrage with what's been said by the utility just because the utility said it. The other organization that came out in opposition a few weeks ago was the California Coastkeeper Alliance. And we're having conversations with that organization. We're not really sure where their opposition comes from. We think that they're a bit misguided, and we've got high hopes that as we continue to move through the legislative process in the Assembly, that they're going to remove their opposition to the bill. But those are the only three organizations right now that are opposed to the bill, and we don't expect any more to join in opposition.
I don't think the Cupertino Chamber of Commerce has a position on this, though I do expect it to be going before our board next week, and I hope we will be weighing in on this important issue as well. Other questions for Justin and John? Yeah, you had mentioned Senator Becker is a sponsor of this. We have him scheduled for the LAC meeting on December 2nd. His district will be including Cupertino once the redistricting redrawn lines are applied. So he will be our senator, and so we're glad to see he's making good things happen. Other questions about the world view from the water companies? As with most issues, looking into this, when it comes to the realization that our water supply is part of an ecosystem, not just natural, but also organizational. So thank you, John and Justin, for starting the conversation about rates. We all, of course, care about them. Now for the next stage of our conversation, we're going to hand it off to Valley Water, also the organization formerly known as the Santa Clara Valley Water District. Valley Water is here to talk about what we can do on a more micro scale. How do we enact conservation? I got this just in the mail. I got this very cool, I didn't know plungers for toilets could save water. I do now. Got a nice handheld hose nozzle. So thank you for that. Personally, Shannon, I think that's probably your job. Why don't you tell us what we all can do to save water?
All right. Yes, awesome. I'm so glad that you have those. You're perfect spokesperson for that. So thank you. So my name is Ashley Shannon. I'm a senior water conservation specialist with Valley Water. And yeah, I'm going to talk about our rebates and our programs and the items that we have available to folks in the county to help reach water conservation goals. So a little bit of a background, because sometimes people don't quite understand who we are or how we fit in. Valley Water is a water wholesaler in the county. So unless you have a well, you don't pay your water bill directly to us. You'll pay it to your water retailer, in Cupertino's case, Cal Water or San Jose Water Company. But we were established in 1929 and we wear multiple hats. So we do provide safe, clean water. We provide flood protection to the county. And we also work hard to make sure that our creeks and streams are healthy, and we keep them healthy. Little background. So we we cover 15 cities within our county. That's over 2 million people who live or work in this county. There are 13 major water retailers, all of which are eligible for our rebate programs, which I'll discuss later, and about 4,700 direct well owners in the county. So quite a big expanse, all the way up from Prisma Hills, Los Altos, way down to Gilroy and over to Milpitas. So we kind of cover the whole gamut of our county. So today, and I'm going to go through these, we have quite a bit that we offer. So I'm going to go through all of this really quickly. This is going to be definitely a quick overview of what we have. However, if you visit watersavings.org, we've got in-depth detail about all the programs and everything that I'm offering. And I'll also, Rick, I'll send you a flyer that kind of summarizes all of our programs, if possible, to send that out as well, if that's an option.
Absolutely. We want to get the word out, and
perfect.
So if everyone helps, then it just becomes that much easier.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I work in the water supply planning and conservation department, and I work on the conservation side of it. So we do all things conservation, ranging from education to services that we offer to rebates, and then giveaways that we offer. We focus on the indoor and outdoor water conservation, although much of our work is shifting towards the outdoor, because that's where we're seeing the biggest potential. We've gotten a lot of those low-hanging fruit, for the indoors, such as high efficiency washers and toilets. Plumbing codes and standards are up at a high enough level now where you can't really go to the store and buy an inefficient toilet, which is great. But we offer things for both commercial and for residential. So as I go through our programs over the next few slides, I'll note the differences, which are available to commercial, multifamily sites, institutional, and which are available just to residential. We do have a lot of overlap in our programs though, so I will keep that in mind. So one of the great programs that we offer, and is especially important right now, because we are asking for reduced irrigation, but within that, we want to make sure that if you are using irrigation, that it's efficient. About half the water that we use is in the landscape, and about half of that is actually wasted. So there's huge potential. We have a program called our WaterWise Outdoor Survey Program. This is for residential or small businesses, small multifamily sites. Where we'll send someone out to evaluate your irrigation system and go through the whole process, flagging problems in it. For this, I should note, because some of the Cupertino residents are customers of San Jose Water Company, San Jose Water Company has a great equivalent program called its CATCH program, and customers of San Jose Water Company would need to go through San Jose Water Company specifically for that program, but it's also a great program. But this is offered if you're in the Cal-Water area, this program would be offered to you, and it's a great way to get started and kind of understand where you might have inefficiencies in your landscape. Another thing that we offer, Rick mentioned, where we give away items, is our online shopping cart. This cart we launched about a year ago, and it has just blown up. We've had extreme interest in this program, and rightfully so, because we are giving away free items to help people conserve. So this is both for commercial, institutional, and residential. When you're going online, you'll type in your site and you'll be given different options. So there is an option for commercial sites to order things in bulk, such as our aerators, and then also for a homeowner to request things like toilet flappers, which are perfect. Toilets are kind of that silent leak that waste a ton of water, way more than people realize. So you can go online, order these items, and they will be sent to you for free. But they're a really kind of quick, easy thing to do, to just swap out something inefficient like a aerator that doesn't have a flow restriction on it for something that will work really well. Next thing we offer is our gray water laundry to landscape rebate program. Our gray water, it's an awesome source of, it's an awesome drought-proof source of water. Even during a drought, if it comes to a point where outdoor landscape is restricted, you still are going to be washing clothes. And so it's a great opportunity to use that water twice and redirect it out into your landscape. This rebate program is available to residential customers, but it is up to $200 and $400 in some areas. And apologies, I didn't check before to see if Cupertino was the $400 rate. I'll have to double check that, but I don't want to misquote. Another thing that we offer, and kind of one of our biggest programs right now, is our landscape rebate program. This program has multiple parts that I'm going to go through quickly, but it ranges from removing lawns to replacing high efficiency equipment and also installing rainwater capture. For this program, we partner with different water retailers or cities in our county, and Cupertino is actually one of those cities that we partner with. So Cupertino adds additional funds to our rebate, and so their residents get increased rebate rates. It doesn't matter whether you're a Cal Water customer or a San Jose Water customer. What we're looking at is the city address, and if you are in Cupertino proper, you're eligible for these increased rebate amounts. Now, Cal Water does have a rebate as well for landscape conversion. That would be a separate rebate. You couldn't apply for both of those, so keep that in mind. You would need to choose which program to go to, but they're both great choices and great routes to go. One of the main things that we focus on in this program is the lawn conversion. Lawns use quite a bit of water, lawns or pools actually apply for a rebate. And we have a rebate for replacing those lawns with low water use plants. This is a $3 per square foot rebate in Cupertino. And this is available to residential sites, commercial, multifamily, institutional, the whole spread. We also, and it's $2 per square foot in other areas of the county. We also just recently added a large landscape lawn to mulch rebate. This is in response to the state's ban on commercial irrigation of lawns, but this is a great opportunity for large sites. So this is not available to residential sites, but for large sites to convert a minimum of 15,000 square feet of lawn. So if you work for a business or an institute that has large expanses of lawn that are not used recreationally, that are just purely for aesthetics, this is a great opportunity to just, they're not going to be irrigated during the drought anyway because of the state's ban, to get those out, replace them with mulch, and install some irrigation to protect the trees in those areas. There's also an opportunity with this for golf courses to remove some of their out of play or rough areas and replace those with a California native seeded grass that's meant to go dormant during the summer. So we recently launched this, and we also increased the rebate cap for our program from 50,000 to 100,000 for commercial sites. So I highly recommend looking into that if you, for your businesses, institutions, anything that you can identify. Also within this rebate is irrigation equipment upgrades. So we do understand that, one, either there might be some lawn area that is functional and you really want to keep it in. There's opportunities to keep that, but make it more efficient. And so we offer rebates for things like high efficiency nozzles. And then we also offer rebates for things like a flow meter that detects leaks early on in the irrigation system, or weather-based controllers that use weather data to make automatic adjustments to your irrigation schedule. And lastly, within our landscape rebate program are our rainwater capture rebates. So, we're looking for alternative water sources, capturing and using rain to irrigate our landscape instead of our potable water is a great resource. And then also capturing rainwater in a rain garden and just redirecting that into our groundwater is also a way to, one, reduce runoff into our stormwater systems, and two, kind of keep that water on site. Right. Now, this next program I'm going to discuss is only for commercial, institutional, large sites, multifamily sites. It is a direct installation program for the removal of inefficient toilets, urinals, and the replacement with high efficiency versions. They'll also replace shower heads and aerators at that time. It's a fixture replacement program. We do have a contractor who runs this program for us. They are actively seeking out sites and have a pretty big list of sites right now that are in the queue, but definitely contact us if you'd like some more information or have a site where you think this would be eligible. Also on the commercial side is our sub-meter rebate. So a sub-meter essentially is a individual meter that would be installed on, a townhome or condo, mobile home. Parks work great for these. And it's a way of allowing residents to understand their own individual water use for that area. The simple act of getting your own water bill and understanding your own water usage cuts water use significantly. Studies have shown a 10 to 30% water savings purely from people just being able to read their own water bill and using that. I'm gonna go through quickly because I know that we don't have a ton of time. The last thing I wanted to talk about is the ordinance that Valley Waters Board enacted on June 1st. So, John talked about the state of our drought at this time, our current water situation. And our board has called for a reduction of 15% water usage. But as the drought gets worse and we are kind of struggling to meet those demands, the board approved outdoor watering restriction ordinance that Valley Water is able to enforce. And so this restriction, we are working hard to meet these reductions. We want to make sure that we don't experience any subsidence in the north part of our county, which is caused by the sinking of land when our underwater aquifers get lowered too much, or wells going dry in our South County where they depend exclusively on groundwater supplies. So within this ordinance, we restrict the irrigation of lawns, ornamental lawns. So this does not include, parks or schools that have, turf playing fields to no more than 2 days per week. Various water retailers in our county may have set those days. So I know San Jose Water Company specifically, based on your address, has specific days of the week that you can water. So this lines up with theirs. So, take a look at what those days are. It also restricts your outdoor irrigation between the hottest, times of the day where we're going to see a lot of evaporation. So this is aimed at reducing the amount of water lost to evaporation. So concentrating your irrigation in the early mornings or the evenings is far more efficient. It also restricts the waste of water. So if you have an irrigation system that is running down the sidewalk, it's spraying buildings, running over your walkway, things like that into the parking lot, this water use is restricted. Now this ordinance is it starts out as an educational program that could eventually culminate into fines if we see that the repeated violations and that there's not an effort to kind of fix the solution. But our goal is to educate folks. So a lot of people don't understand that they might be irrigating on the wrong day or have broken sprinklers. And so our first step is to send someone out, educate, and then also point them in the direction of our rebate programs or services that can kind of help make those changes. We do have a water waste reporting system for this, and we'd encourage you all to use this, to utilize it if you see water waste. A lot of times we find that people don't realize that they have it. People don't really want a broken sprinkler or want water wasting. And so this is an opportunity to let people know that, hey, it was noticed that, at 5 in the morning when you're irrigating today, you have a broken sprinkler. It's running all over the place. And so this can be used, water waste can be reported in 3 ways. We have an Access Valley Water app that you can use on your phone. It's really helpful, especially if you're on the go and you can just snap a picture and a location, or you can submit it through our website through Access Valley Water, and then also by phone call or by email. So multiple options, and we will track those cases, and we're working very closely with our water retailers in the county to also keep them informed of this process. And lastly, to keep an eye out, you've probably seen our Say Yes to Saving Water campaign that's out. So this is out on social media or ads or banners, and it's really just we're trying to get the community to essentially say yes to saving water during this drought and to help us all reach our conservation goals. So I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time. As you can see, we do quite a bit, but we have staff that's happy to answer questions. Our hotline listed here, we have a number of pretty awesome interns who help run our programs for us and answer questions. We can also send questions to our conservation at valleywater.org. And we can assist. But our main rebate webpage is that, again, watersavings.org. And you can find in-depth information about everything I listed today. All right. And that was that's it for me, but I'm happy to take questions, Rick, if that's in that process.
I see Matt asked a question. I don't know if you see the comments about gray water irrigation. Are those subject to the same restrictions as you were describing for regular water?
So no, the gray water would not play into that. Gray water is a little bit harder as far as the 2-day-week restriction, if I didn't specify, is specifically for lawns. And so gray water is generally not used to irrigate lawns. It's not pressurized in such a way that can run sprinklers. And so it's not restricted in that sense. The water restrictions are for potable water sources that Valley Water supplies. The gray water would not fall into that. It's really just dependent on, when you end up doing laundry. So if you're doing laundry at midnight or middle of the day, that's okay.
Great. Other questions for Ashley? I know this is a big issue. Other than having a general awareness, I was fortunate to go on a driving trip in the beginning of May around Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Colorado. And one of the things that really had a profound impact on me was just how phenomenally dry everything was. Lake Powell, Lake Mead, you couldn't see the water from the vista points that we were at for lake viewing. If it wasn't dry, it was on fire. And we had 2 or 3 days of really dust bowl-like conditions, high winds, and a lot of soil being moved. So it's not just California, it's something we're all facing, and I think increasingly is going to be a way of life for us. Wasting water is not cool. Other questions? I think, yeah, Hung, you had your hand up.
So what would Valley Water add? How would Valley Water add if residents, fire complaints of water waste? What are the procedures?
Yeah, we have a multi-step process, and we do work with our water retailers, so it may vary depending on the water retailer. Some of those will inform of the water waste complaint, and they'll proceed with it. Essentially, there's a few steps to the violation. So we'll get a first violation. We'll respond. We'll let the customer know that we received the violation. If we receive another complaint after 2 weeks, after 14 days. So we do need to give them a chance to make some changes. It would proceed to the next step where we go out. We will leave a door hanger. We'll send a letter. Eventually, it could result in fines. So, starting at $100, going up to $500. And then for, eventually the most egregious, if we're seeing high amounts of water waste and no response to updates, could go up to $10,000. But our goal is to not reach that level of fines. Most people, they want to save water, they don't want to be wasting, and are anxious to get those issues fixed. And a lot of them can be covered through our rebate programs as well.
Thank you, Ashley. For follow-up, are we able to share your deck? We certainly want to do as much outreach as we can to keep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah,
I can send you that.
Okay. And the same question for you, John. Can we save or share your slide deck?
I'm perfectly fine with it. I hope my colleague Justin concurs as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Well, thank you so much. We'll definitely start conserving. It's going to be a long, hot, dry summer. It's strange to think that it just started a few weeks ago, seems like it's been going on for months, but I think that's seems to be the new normal. So thank you to all of our presenters. Thank you for your work to help keep us afloat. I'm sorry, I can't help these things. They just kind of come out. Sorry, bad